We are WNST, Taos, Baltimore. Baltimore Positive. We got logos all over the place. Our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions are putting us out on the road. They take care of my water, my well water, keeping me safe, keeping my showers nice. But the oysters are the ones who take care of the Chesapeake Bay. So we're going to honor the oysters all month by eating them. More of them in various ways. We're going to start today, Coco's. You can follow on the internet. The hashtag is MD Oyster Tour. I'm doing crab cake tours, which I'm in the middle of right here at Coco's. I have the Gold Rush Sevens doublers from the Maryland Lottery. I will have the Raven scratch-offs once I give this handsome stack out, and I have my little app. Viv, you caught me like checking people's apps, right?
Yes,
I'm trying to. These poor ladies thought they won, they didn't win.
Delivered the bad news, but you did it gracefully. That was nice.
You like my game show?
You let it.
Yeah. Mark Viviano is here. He used to be on the television. You look like the guy on the television. So I want to do the This Is Your Life because I really do want to go back to like your family and like have all that fun. But you're most famous in my media world as I've been on the radio 4 years at the time. Nasty Nestor. I was on WLG. Didn't have a station. It was 1995. And this whole notion for any of these kids, and certainly for Chad Steele as well, the notion of what a miracle the Ravens were for this community and how unbelievable, like, the notion that I could go out tonight and see the Northern Lights here in Baltimore feels impossible to me, right? Like, it feels like that just could never happen. It just felt like we weren't getting a team. And, Mark, I'm not some, like, guy from Dundalk on, I was at the newspaper every day, every night, doing the scoreboard page. By the time I was 15 years old, from the time the team left,
Yep.
And by the way, we're doing a Sports First reunion 2 weeks from now because it's the 40th anniversary of it failing, which is September 21st, 1984. My son was born the next day. So it's a 40th anniversary. Lots of Sig's going to be here later. We're going to talk about it. But so, I guess in all of this, the notion that we would get a team, I saw Vito Stellino. All the reporters, John Stedman. These were all people. They would go to these owners' meetings and get yanked off by Leonard Tost and Rankin Smith, and Irsay had the vote. Irsay had to vote for Baltimore to get back into the league. Mm-hmm. That was part of the deal. So every year, Herbie Belgrab would take his crab cakes to this owner's meeting, that, and he would come back, and Vito would write something. That's a pretty good Vito. Vito would write something really good about, I don't really think the chances are good. That would be Vito telling me that in 1989 when little Nestor is in his Oilers gear, sitting in Sandy McKee's cube at the Sun, thinking, Charlie Ekman, there ain't no way we're getting the team back, leader. And you stumble upon this, and it was such a hot thing that I think if any reporter had it to think to go with it, that the Browns are moving to Baltimore, as insane as that sounds, even to say it 30 years later, the Browns are moving to Baltimore. Give me the story, Viv, because I literally don't know it.
So I covered the Cleveland Browns while in Dayton, Ohio. I covered the Browns and the Bengals. I was there for some bad Browns teams and some pretty good teams.
You went up to Cleveland for games from Dayton.
That part of the state.
That's an Ohio thing,
yes,
right?
Remember, the Bengals were relatively new. They joined the league in, I think, 68, 69. The Browns had been there since the 50s, 40s. So they were statewide. The Bengals, although closer to Dayton, there were still a lot of holdouts.
Like the Nationals would be new to
Similar.
Right.
So I would drive. It was a good 3-hour drive to Cleveland for their home games, cover their teams. Kevin Byrne was their PR guy.
Absolutely. Dino was there then? Did you know? There was a whole staff of people there.
Oh, tons of them. Yeah. I was there. I'll never forget a conversation I had with Bill Belichick on the field. This is his first head coaching job in the NFL. He's head coach of the Cleveland Browns at the community college there where they had training camp back then. And I'm doing, stand-ups on an empty field. Bill Belichick comes running out. He goes, hey, what's up? He just wanted to meet people. And we ended up talking about everything other than football. And he was really a good guy. He was a nice guy. What you see otherwise, you'll hear a lot of stories about how Belichick, when you get him away from the media and football, he's a perfectly good human being. It's when he's immersed in the world of competition that he becomes this this very difficult guy to deal with. Anyway, I covered the Browns. So I'm in Baltimore. And I'm aware of the Colts and the scab that's still in Baltimore over the loss of the Colts.
Well, you're a St. Louis guy, right?
St. Louis
Cardinals were gone.
The Cardinals, they've lost two teams in my lifetime. They lost the Cardinals, and then they lost the Rams, who came and left.
Well, you weren't there for that, but
I wasn't there. But my family was.
You had Jim. You saw Jim Hart stuff in sports bars.
Yeah.
Literally, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Terry Metcalf and like.
So anyway, how the story comes about. So I've only been in town. I've only been in Baltimore for a year and a few months. I'm doing a fill-in for Ken Rosenthal on WBAL radio. Rosenthal would do a show.
Jackman used to do them sometimes too.
So I'm just filling in. I'm filling in, and the guy, the producer of the show, during a break goes, "Hey, Mark, there's a guy that wants to talk to you. He doesn't want to be on the air. He just wants to talk to you off the air." I'm like, "Okay, patch me through." So we're on. He goes, "Hey, I know you're pretty new to town. I've been watching you. You're good. We need good talent like you in this town. I've got some information. I'm in on the deal that is on the financial end of the deal to bring the Cleveland Browns to Baltimore. I'd like to show you some of the documentation that I have about this. Are you game?" I'm like, "Am I game? Yeah, I'm game." So I meet him the next day, and this is like...
You're in Baltimore.
I'm in Baltimore.
Okay, all right.
So he tells me his name is Chris. And he tells me to meet him down by the airport at this one bar. He still knows the name of the bar. This guy, by the way, is a good friend of mine now. I pull up in the parking lot of this restaurant bar, and the parking lot's empty, except for one black SUV. And he pulls his over next to me. He goes, "Hey, I'm Chris. This place is closed. I got another place." At this point, I'm like, okay, this guy's going to kill me. He's going to murder me. I don't know him. I'm there to follow him, and he leads me down kind of this back road to this other bar. It was kind of like it was really sketchy looking.
Sopranos episode.
Yeah, it was sketchy. So we go in, and it's like Hollywood. There's a guy with the apron on.
It's Glen Burnie, dude. It's Ferndale.
He's got an apron on. He's behind the bar, and there's nobody in there. And this is like it's like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We sit at this corner table. He pulls out all these papers, and he's showing me the paperwork of.
I'm glad I asked this question because I don't know this
how
story.
This deal is going down.
All right.
And I'm looking at this going, this is unbelievable. I said, I cover the Cleveland Browns. I know who they are. I know who Art Modell is.
And I know his place is a dump, and I know the baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, you knew the circumstances, but
right.
There hadn't been a whisper of this.
None.
Not a whisper.
Not a whisper. So anyway, he goes, "There you go." And I'm like, okay. So I go straight back to BAL to my news director, Dave Roberts, and explain to him what I got.
And he says, "What?"
Yeah, pretty much says what? What are you talking about here? So anyway, remember I told you, so the Cleveland Indians are in the World Series. Yes, this is 94. I'm sorry, 95. This is 95. The year after baseball.
I'm going to give you my story now because I want to hear the rest of this because this happened within 48 hours, okay? So Kevin Eck was my best friend in the world. You know Kevin, right?
Oh, yeah.
Kevin worked at The Sun at the time and at the News American before that, and Kevin and I grew up, met in 1979, standing in line to get Billy Smith's autograph at games at East Point Mall.
Wow.
In the summer, August of 79. 3 weeks later, we met in 7th grade, and he's like, "Oh, you're the loud guy that was at the mall getting autographs." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." So I'm 10 at the time, right? So flash forward 16, 17 years later, 1995. You know what a baseball head I am, right? I mean, Aparicio, right? So when the team came to Baltimore, I realized the players had access to World Series tickets and, like, I could get them and go. So in 1992, when the Sid Bream thing happened, I was sitting on strips in Pittsburgh to go to the World Series.
Wow.
And I had to give the tickets back to David Segui, and I got my $80 back or whatever. So the next year in 93, I went to the World Series. I went to Philadelphia, Curt Schilling. He married my best friend growing up from across the street, like all that. I went to Toronto. I was there when Carter hit the home run, all that. 94, there's no World Series,
No
right?
World Series.
95, it's going to be a World Series, right? And, you know, it's going to be – and I'm on the radio 4 years now. I'm doing things. I'm nasty. I got sponsors, Budweiser, St. Louis, my sponsor. So I got tickets for the World Series, and I got 2 tickets up on the roof, probably from the Orioles, probably from Evelyn Ehlers or something, at that time or whatever, right? And or maybe from a player. I don't even remember. Maybe Chris Hoyles or somebody, or Ben McDonald. Somebody told me to strip of tickets. Brady, somebody. And I said to Kevin, you want to go out to Cleveland for some games? They got a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now, and we'll go out, we'll chase some girls. We're both 26. And that was the week that Gary Miller had the incident, the basement. If you can Google that. That was that week. So that World Series, games 3, 4, and 5 were in Cleveland. It was cold as hell. I broadcast from the field. I got pictures of me with Chris Berman and like all this stuff going on. And Kevin just was like a regular guy. Kevin landed to go to 2 of the games. He flew in. He was working at the paper. And it was just $29 on Southwest Airlines at the time.
God.
Remember that? $19. Yeah. So he flew out to Cleveland, came up. And Kevin didn't travel a whole lot or whatever. He got in cabs, which were always expensive for a Dundalk guy, right? Mm-hmm. And he got in the cab to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Trust me, there's a point to this story. He goes over to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it's closed because they had a gala there because the World Series Game 5 was going on.
Sure.
So they shut it down. He couldn't get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And now he's in Cleveland. I don't know where he is. There's no Google, man. He gets in a cab. And the cab ride he got in, I wrote about this in Purple Rain 1 as well. Probably wrote about it better than I'll tell you the story. Because he told me about this. Later in an adult establishment that we were in later in the evening down in Brook Park. I didn't go to the game with him. I was on the field broadcasting. It was cold as hell. He showed up. We sat together up in the stands, even though I had a press box seat, but I had a ticket. We were up in the right field stands. And we're up there, and we're freezing and watching the game. And he says to me, I did this and went there, and I had to get in a cab, and I had to take a cab over here. It was a cluster. I barely got here in time for the national anthem, whatever it was, right? And he said, I had a crazy cab ride, dude. I'm like, what? He said, Cabby asked me where I was from. And I said, Baltimore. And he said he looked into the rearview mirror in the back seat, and he said, you're getting the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are coming to Baltimore. And Kevin's a reporter at the Sun in the back seat. And he's like, who is this kook? You know what I mean? Yeah. And the cabbie said to Kevin, I'm neighbors with one of the banker guys for Art Modell. And he turns around to Kevin in the cab and he says, you're going to remember me, pal, because the Cleveland Browns are coming to Baltimore. Kevin Eck tells me this at Game 5 of the World Series up at the Jake. We went out that night and we were literally in a bar. Some people might have been dancing there, and we're having some drinks, and we watched the post-game with Chris Berman, ESPN, all that. We're in there watching the highlights, and we flew out the next morning. That was the day the deal was signed. Was that the morning we went to the airport, because we were staying right outside the airport, the deal got signed, and you broke that story within 4 days, 5 days. It was within that week of the World Series, right?
Because I called
October 25, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there, right?
At that point, like what happens oftentimes in local television news, if you've got a story and there's another end to it, which would be Cleveland, you kind of try to pull resources and say, hey.
What are you hearing?
What are you hearing? So I called. Jim Donovan is the sports director. Right, he's the voice of the Browns. So he picks up the phone. I said, Jim, Mark Viviano, I'm at the NBC affiliate in Baltimore. Listen, I've gotten some real credible tips about some movement of a deal to move the Browns to Baltimore. And I don't blame Jim for this. This was a common reaction even among Baltimore media. Jim Donovan, hey, man, we've heard that song and dance quite a bit around here. The Indians are in the World Series right now. Good luck with the story.
You remember it exactly that way.
Exactly that way. So there were a few Cleveland radio stations would have me on, and one of them called me up. I said, yeah, I'll go on. I'll tell you what I know. Unbeknownst to me, it was kind of a setup. Mayor Michael White was in studio with them. Cleveland Mayor Michael White. And they're saying, okay, Mark Viviano joins us from Cleveland. He's the one who's been reporting that the Browns are actually in conversations with state officials in Maryland about moving, the team, this and that. And I said, well, this is what I've learned to this point. at this point, Sandusky and me and our news director had built, some corroborating evidence to the information that I had. And then, well, Mark, Mayor Michael White is here with us here in studio. And this guy just denounced everything I said.
Well, they were trying to get it on the ballot, right, to get the stadium renovations done. That was the plan in 95, was to renovate the mistake on the lake.
And it was all too late for Art. Art needed a lifeline just to save himself because he was going bankrupt for paying guys like Andre Rison, and he needed the money that Baltimore was holding. They had it. So
and John knew that.
Yeah. So
John Moog, by the way.
The final confirmation that we got came from Mayor Schmoke. Mayor Schmoke said, "You guys got it. You're on it." There's a press conference in the parking lot scheduled for, I think it was November 4th or 5th, whatever it was.
I met Peter King that day.
So what I did,
parking lot D, as I remember it.
So we rewind 30 years. This is what I did. I go get some WBAL letterhead, sit down at a typewriter, type the story. WBAL TV, Baltimore is reporting the Cleveland Browns have a deal in place and will announce on November 5th that they are relocating to Baltimore. Faxed it to ESPN. Bob Lee read it on the air. Now, you'll know this as a media guy. If you have that story in 2024, that story, you tweet one bit about it,
it's over.
It's over. You'll never own it. It's not yours. At that time, there was no Facebook. There was no Twitter.
Well, my WNST breaking news thing, that was a thing 15 years ago. Now it's just information
it just goes.
And it doesn't get credited to the Los Angeles Times or to the reporter's name even.
You don't
Certainly,
own it.
Yeah, it's just.
Nobody had it. If anybody had it, nobody put it out there. Nobody went with it. So it was our story. It was entirely our story. Now, that was a huge thing to be at that press conference because even the local TV stations, and Scott Garceau is a dear friend of mine, John Buren, who I eventually replaced, but they were like, those stations were running ads denouncing my reports. Don't believe the hype. Whistling past the graveyard.
Well, I remember whistling past the graveyard.
Yeah. It's like, well, it happened. It actually happened. And it was nuts. I mean, it was a huge story. And
it was saying there were going to be northern lights here tonight, and it actually happened. I can't, as a person that was here, it's still for younger people. They'll never appreciate what John did, what William Donald, what the community did. I mean, even the PSLs. And I talk about trying to sell a PSL right now for the football. You know what I mean? Like if they had to do that again, if they had to get a legislature to hold money for a decade, if they had to get William Donald Schaefer to get in the way of Jack Kent Cooke moving the Redskins to Laurel, all of the things that could have happened, and Art had to be going broke. They had to find the right candidate. Because I don't know that Bud Adams would ever move the team. Right. It didn't feel like – it always just felt like we were going to get used. Like, I don't know, Portland, Birmingham, Memphis. Name these places that are never going to get a team. Right. San Antonio. They have a dome down there 40 years. They're not getting a team. Right? It just felt like they weren't going to let us play. Maybe you didn't feel that way because you were new to town.
Exactly.
You saw it as well. The Oilers everybody else can move.
Yeah, Jacksonville and Carolina got the team that you guys thought you were going to get here before I got here. There was every reason to.
Well, Angelos believed he had the Buccaneers. He died believing that they screwed him.
I remember going down to RFK for a then Redskins game, and Angelos was on the field interviewing Peter Angelos because they were playing the Buccaneers. He was down there because he was
Hugh
running.
Culverhouse was dying, right?
He was out there. He was out there for this. You guys went through, Mike Brown's in town, Cleveland or Cincinnati Bengals might move here.
Georgia Frontiere, Al Davis. Oh my God! The '98 rock guy. Maybe it was Bob Rivers had a song, "Mr. Bidwell, bring us your team," and that we were trying to steal your team.
That's right.
In St. Louis,
and they moved to Arizona in '97, I think. Ended up
no, 87.
87.
I was at the Sun then. They were selling Baltimore Cardinals shirts. Stan Rappaport wore one at the Baltimore Sun in 1987. There was Google Baltimore Cardinals gear.
There's also Baltimore Browns gear.
Yeah, but that really happened. Mark Viviano's here. So that you had a deep throat named Chris, not his real name?
Not his real name.
Yeah, okay.
In fact, you might know him.
I might know the real person?
You might know the real person.
I may have already mentioned his name. Who knows?
I know this. Steve Hennessy knew him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did Martin Mull bring the Browns? No.
That's good. I can tell you his name. He was in my wedding. He's a dear friend of this.
Go ahead. I don't know. It shocked me. Go ahead.
Kevin Butler.
Okay. All right,
Kevin
sure.
Butler,
All right,
he
sure.
owned Bay Area Mortgage.
Bay Area Mortgage, sure. He's a fan. He's a longtime listener of mine.
Yeah.
He owns the Hammerjacks.
He does. He owns the
He was
trademark.
the deep throat?
He was the guy. He was in my wedding. I just saw him.
I'm surprised he doesn't brag more about this.
No, he's cool. We're just dear friends. Have been ever since.
Now I know why it was such a seedy bar in Glen Burnie.
Yes.
We're one of the best bars in Baltimore, maybe in the world. We're Coco's Pub. We're in Lauraville. Have you been here before?
No. And
you insisted on coming here.
I saw them making. These aren't baseball size crab
They're 11 ounces.
They're not softball. They're like mini footballs.
Marcella's right behind you. She's in the shot right there. This is Marcella.
Oh,
her
my
mother,
goodness.
Marcella. You want to come tell them about this 11-ounce crab cake?
Oh,
because,
my goodness.
So her mother's hands, this is the only way she knew how to make the crab cake. So her mother made it like this, and they didn't even know how big it was, because it's
phenomenal.
They don't, they weigh them now, but like they're huge around here. He wanted to know why the crab cakes are so
phenomenal.
Mark Viviano, retired and retired
No,
now.
seriously,
absolutely.
I want you to know, I saw your guy making those and putting them in the cooler over here. I've never seen a crab cake that big.
Yes.
I've seen watermelons that big, not crab cake. That's unbelievable.
Tell them why they're that big.
They're that big because of my mom's hands. That was the size of my mom's hands when she used to make the crab cakes. She never weighed them. She just molded them, and that's the size of the crab cake.
And then once people in here there used to be pool tables right where we are right now. I mean, this was like a real corner, like little place.
Yeah.
And I've known her since the Emerald Tavern. Tell them about me wearing my Oiler helmet on game days at the Emerald Tavern. Everybody there's betting, And by the way, it's Gambling Awareness Month. I did a whole piece on that with John Martin this morning. Not that payphone out in front of the Emerald Tavern was something back in the day. But her and her mom on Sundays, I guess this place was closed. Maybe,
yes. Yep.
And they would come and watch football. It was the Browns backers bar in 1993, 94. 95 until...
If I'd have known that, this would have been the place to come to get the reaction. I went to Cleveland.
Do you remember on the opening day when they had a sign that circled that said, Jump Art,
yes.
David Land on it or whatever?
Was that from
That
this
was
club?
The Browns backers paid for that. They paid the
Wow.
$300 or whatever to have the plane fly around. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I've known her that long, and her mom, and she would always say, we own Coco's Pub, come by and get a crab cake. And I know I had come in here a couple times 20 years ago, and all of these years, this place is one of the gems in Baltimore.
That's awesome.
It's just one of the great. So he wanted to come here because he hadn't been here yet, and he's heard about crab cakes. So he's taking one home to his wife.
My husband is so upset that he can't be here today.
To meet a real sports celebrity.
He said
to
meet
a credentialed
you know that he
media
loved
member.
everything that you did, and he used to watch you all the time.
Well, tell him to come watch his kids play Little League.
I will arrange that I come back just to have dinner with him. Let's do that.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
I mean, you're having me here, and I'm sorry I'm missing him, but I would love to come back.
Yeah, he's out in Hagerstown visiting with his dad today.
Gotcha.
So he couldn't make it, but he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
So is he coming back tonight from Hagerstown?
Yes.
If he leaves after 7 o'clock, tell him to bring you donuts from Crumpy's. They don't open till 7 at night. It's in an alley. Does he know about this?
No.
It's in an alley. Go get donuts in an alley. It's all good.
Dude, you stole the Browns in a bar in Ferndale with a guy named Chris, who's not really a Chris. Crumpy's Donuts. I had the former mayor of Hagerstown on. She's now the drug czar for the state, the opioid special response for Westmore. She's the former mayor of reminds me of you, quite frankly. She's spunky and awesome. So there's a donut place 2 blocks from where she lives. It's the most famous donut place in Hagerstown.
Really?
And when I did the crab cake tour a couple years ago, I looked it up, and it opened. It said 7 p.m.
What a weird
And
time
I'm like, no.
Google must be
Google
AM,
did this
right?
wrong. I mean, donut place in an alley in Hagerstown, open 7 p.m. I'm like, and they're like, no. It's it opens at 7 at night. That's really the way they do donuts here. And if you go at 7:10, there'll be a line of 10 cars in the alley with brake lights.
Awesome.
And it's in a neighbor.
How
it's
cool.
called Donut Alley.
We'll have to look
So
for
it is literally like a Coco's.
My father-in-law lives in
we
Hagerstown.
love quirky little. You're a
Right.
St. Louis guy, and I mentioned the Hill
You
and
like to
these
find little places, just like this
venerable
place.
family
Oh, yeah.
business.
In
That's
fact-
what this is. Her and her mother made this thing happen 30 years
God
ago.
bless you. That's
39,
awesome. That's
39.
the best.
We just
You're not
celebrated
that
39.
old. You're not even 39 years old.
Big
I was a
celebration.
baby when they opened it. We had 39-year anniversary, August 17th. We just passed.
All right, I'm going to
So
have you
we're
back
starting.
later.
We're getting ready to plan a 40th.
Nice.
I didn't want to
big
pull you. You're serving
extravaganza.
crab cakes. A
Oh,
sport
that's-
table. Can you give them some lottery tickets for me? Because I pulled you
Absolutely.
away.
They would love
Rasig's
that.
going to come on. Look, I want you to come back in about an hour. You were
Okay.
doing the oyster thing. Viv's going to be gone then. So
I
I'm
got
glad.
to sample the oyster appetizer for tonight. I think you're going to love it. It's delicious.
Well, what I'm trying to do is educate people about the Bay on behalf of the Oyster Recovery Partnership. Maryland Lottery sending me out. Our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions. They're a water company, and they do my well water. And they've been doing it for years. And this oyster thing, they do this trick where they put an oyster in an aquarium, and we have a cocktail party, and 4 hours later, the water's clear. They put it in a river because oysters clean the bay.
Right,
and that's
right.
how you get these crab cakes taste so delicious, because we don't have crabs if we don't have oysters. So I'm going to be educating people every day, having an oyster day every month. Don't be bringing me 15 oysters, because John Shields is going to do that tomorrow, and then
Yeah.
Friday I'm going to the Peppermill, and you're
Well,
old enough to go
ours
now.
are roasted. They're not like
All right,
on the
well, we're going to
half
do
shell.
that in the 4 o'clock hour, and I want to talk about your thing with with the old Jay-Z folks and 100.7. You won the competition last year, the
Yes.
crab cake,
and it's coming
Oh,
up
nice.
again.
and you're doing it again, right?
Yes, we're
I want to
doing
make
it
sure
again.
I knew that. So, hey,
We're
Gabe,
also doing the Susquehanna Wine Festival.
I saw that.
Yes, that's in September.
There's an oyster-related thing to that, I think, too. There's an oyster recovery piece to that, I think.
Huh.
I think. Because I saw your logo up on the website.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, well, we're Coco's. Viv is here. I'm going to get Rasig in. Can I bring Rasig in?
Of course.
Because he's from New York via Buffalo. His wife is here. It's via Cleveland. It's the 40th anniversary of sports' first demise. Rasig and I met 40 years ago this summer, working together. We were colleagues. I was 15 years old. And so we're doing a reunion in 2 weeks on the show. We're doing a
Nice.
Zoom reunion. Bernie Miklasz,
Oh, yeah.
Jeff Gordon, the sports editor, the longtime sports editor of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Bob Paston, was my boss. Was the late great Bob Paston, my first ever boss, first person to ever give me a chance in life to do this for a living. So we're going to do that, and Rasig's going to sit down, and you're going to come back and bring me some oysters, right?
Absolutely.
And we're going to bring other staff members here. We got soccer players, crab cake makers.
Are you going to stay for a while, Mark?
I have baseball practice. My
Okay.
son's team, that we have practice
He retired, so he didn't have to wear a headset.
down in Severna
Right?
Park. But I would love,
Really?
if I could bring my wife a crab cake, she'll be so
I'm gonna
happy.
bring her too.
I'll send some home
All right.
with you today.
You don't have to, they don't have to be multiples. Just
Do you
listen,
eat
they're
shrimp?
Gigantic.
Do you eat shrimp?
Of course.
All right, one order coconut shrimp
Coconut
for the next, and I'm going to bring Rasig in. Terry's here as well. She's going to laugh at my jokes. Thanks, Tara. Appreciate that. And little known fact, and do you know why I'm Nasty Nestor? Do you know the genesis of how I was?
I always thought it was because he was nasty.
I would have thought so.
Right?
When I was a boy, I was Meatball, Doughboy, Nestor the long-eared Christmas donkey. Took a lot of jokes for the finger missing and all that. So I didn't really love my name, right? And I was at the paper, and my name was there, right? So my dad's name was Nestor. And all during the 90s, I started doing this radio thing. About a year and a half, 2 years before I did radio, I made a bet with Mike Rosigliano at the Baltimore Sun after going to see Eddie Murray hit 2 home runs against the Phillies as a Dodger, summer '89. Came in and I offered to babysit Rasig's kids if he could name all the relief pitchers first names for the Phillies.
Wow.
And the name that won the bet was Froworth, who later became an Oriole, and a friend, the late great friend of mine, Todd. He said, he played a lot of rotisserie baseball, Rasig did. Yeah. So he won the bet, and I had to go to his house 2 blocks from here and babysit his children in the summer of 1989.
Wow.
How old were your kids in '89, Tara? What year were they born? 6 and 7, 5 and 6, 6. These kids were beautiful adults. But they were, so I sent them to bed early because I didn't come to Coco's and I made chicken on the grill and it all burned. And I blamed it on them and I sent them to bed, wink, wink. They had to go to bed. I had a date that night. So I sent them to bed and they got mad at me. And instead of calling me Uncle Nestor, they started calling me Nasty Nestor.
That's perfect.
So Rasig's kids named me Nasty
That's
Nestor.
6 and 7 year old kids. They know what they're doing.
And they're 40-something now. They got little twins that are making Grandpa and Grandma
Wow.
Rasig all happy out here in Lauraville. It's
beautiful.
Eating Coco's crab cakes. We're going to get some Coco shrimp. Rasig is my co-host with a K because he lives in the neighborhood.
Love it.
So I have all the old retired people out now.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
me.
Rasig's like, yeah, I'm retired and old. He's wearing his Oriole cap. We're going to come back and do some more. Maryland Lottery, Liberty Pure Solutions, Jiffy Lube, our friends at Curio Wellness putting us out on this 26th anniversary tour. 27 oysters because I'm starting a day early with the Gruyere and Parmesan garlic roasted oysters. And they're broiled just like New Orleans. Back for more Cocos with Viv and Rasig right after this.